Welcome, fellow explorers. My name is Christian Alexanderson, and this is Hemlocks to Hellbenders, a podcast highlighting Pennsylvania's parks, forests, and great outdoors. When you stand on the ridgeline of South Mountain and look out across the valleys, you see more than just trees and farmland. You see orchards stretching toward the horizon, you see trails that have carried travelers for centuries, and you see small, thriving towns that grew out of rocky soil. This beautiful ridgeline is the northern terminus of the Blue Ridge Mountains, a billion-year-old mountain range that stretches 550 miles across 8 states. South Mountain isn't just a line on a map. It's the beating heart of south-central Pennsylvania. But here's the thing. Landscapes like this don't stay special on their own. They face pressures from development, from climate change, from people loving them a little too much or sometimes not enough. That's where the South Mountain Partnership comes in. The organization serves as a public-private partnership between the Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources and the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. Over time, it's grown into an alliance of citizens, businesses, nonprofits, academic institutions, and local, state, and federal government agencies and officials collaborating to envision and secure a sustainable future for the South Mountain landscape. This unique coalition is working together to protect not just the forests and farms, but the culture, the history, and the very sense of place that makes South Mountain what it is. Because when you talk about protecting a landscape, you're really talking about protecting people's lives, their heritage, and their future. And in South Mountain, all those things are tightly bound together. I'm excited to welcome Katie Hess and Julia Chain to the podcast. Katie is the director, and Julia is the program manager at South Mountain Partnership. Katie, Julia, thanks so much for joining the program.
Of course. Thank you for having us. We've been waiting a long time for this.
Yes, we're very happy to be here. We've seen your podcast just blow up with excitement. And so feeling like we're with a rock star today.
Well, now that's just playing to my ego. I can appreciate that. What's the South Mountain Partnership and what's its core mission?
The South Mountain Partnership is a partnership between the Appalachian Trail Conservancy and Pennsylvania Department for Conservation and Natural Resources. Our region was designated as a conservation landscape because it has a couple really cool qualities. Not only is it naturally a beautiful place, we have core public lands. Maybe some of the listeners are familiar with the Michaud State Forest. That's the heart of our region. And from that heart, we move out into the agricultural valleys and historic towns on either side of the Michaud. And we run this partnership between these two organizations to invest in local citizens, because that's the other portion of the secret sauce. In addition to having this amazing place, we also have people who care a lot. Our South Mountain Partnership is run through a committee structure of local partners. So we have over 60 folks involved in the day-to-day strategic direction of our organization.
How would you describe the South Mountain that you serve, the overall area? What does it look like? What is it made up of?
Think of maybe driving across the Yellow Breeches and you see the mountain between Dillsburg and Boiling Springs. That's South Mountain. Let's say you're in Shippensburg looking east across the Cumberland Valley. You're seeing a mountain, that's South Mountain. But you're also seeing those valleys, those historic communities, the streams, the historic resources, all of that overlap of things that make this place special. The farms, the little country roads, it all comes together. And we're just a really unique place for still having that character. These places are really disappearing along the East Coast, and there aren't many places like this left.
What makes the South Mountain region unique in terms of natural, cultural, and recreational resources?
We've really got it going on here. So we are the convergence of all of those things all at once in every spot, essentially. And so we know that we are an ecologically significant region because of the connection of the mountains. We're the northern terminus of the Blue Mountain. And then we also know that there is an important bird and migration habitat coming across our valley over to the Kittatinny Ridge. So our soils and our habitat are extremely high quality. That leads to agriculture being a historic use of our site, as well as many different industries like the iron industry. We'll talk about that more maybe later when we talk about our state parks and state forests. So the land shaped how people could be here. And then with people traveling here, we know that we have extreme cultural resources. So we have prehistory, archaeological sites, Metarhyolite can be found in the Michoud State Forest, which is a type of tool-making material that native populations used here and traded up and down the East Coast. And then throughout history, we have all kinds of historic resources. We've got post-war towns. We have 1900s shopping center type downtowns. We've really got it all. And within a half an hour drive, you can see everything that I just described there.
And to build on that, our agricultural resources are pretty unique here. You know, Lancaster County gets a lot of credit for their prime agricultural soils, but we have a ton of really great soil in the Cumberland Valley. Speaking to something else, I grew up in Biglerville in Adams County, and we have a really unique microclimate there suited for tree fruit production. And there's nowhere else like that in the nation. Yeah, they grow apples in Michigan and Washington, but this is a place that is so unique because you do not have this convergence of the Blue Ridge Mountains, the Piedmont, and the Ridge and Valley system. The only other place that happens in the US is Georgia, and they're so much further south, it makes for a completely different experience. So we've actually been likened, the fruit belt of Adams County is actually likened to certain regions of Italy for the uniqueness of all of those environmental factors kind of converging there. And then add on top of that, all of our recreation. We have tons of outdoor rec places to go and do loop trails, but also long range systems such as the National Appalachian Scenic Trail. And let's see, all of our state parks are 4 state parks, and Michoud State Forest knitting it all together. So like Julia said, we've got it going on. And if we, you know, it's not only do we take great pride in that, it's a little bit sobering. Like we have to sober people up at times and get them to really consider, if we were to lose one of those types of resources, we would cease to be the way that we are now. And so that's why we hit on all 4 of those landscape resource types in our work.
Yeah, and it's kind of a unique way to approach landscape conservation, or it's the purpose of landscape conservation is to not look at one of those resources in a vacuum. And so while some of our partners may focus on one of those particular resources, we welcome everyone to the table, and all kinds of things that are worth protecting and loving about our home, our health, all of that comes to the table at the South Mountain Partnership.
How the partnership gets started and how has its focus evolved over time?
Oh my, this is a great story. This precedes me. This was pre-2006. There's a very important, culturally important place called White Rocks. Many people, especially in Cumberland and York counties, might be familiar with White Rock Acres. And White Rocks is a side trail of the Appalachian National Scenic Trail. And it has this gorgeous view of the valley. There's ridges on either side that really make you feel like you're in the middle of nowhere, when really you're just in, you're not that far from Carlisle or Boiling Springs or Dillsburg. But it's such a unique place. And it was threatened by a very, very large residential development. And at the time, folks who cared about that place and wanted to see a more balanced approach to that development got together to see what discussions could be had and what they might be able to do. And the story goes that they really thought that they were too late and that they were not going to have an impact because they were so late to the game, and they weren't. And they really chalked this up to partnership. What they found worked for them was working at all of these different scales, from the local site to municipal government to county government, state agencies, federal partners, all coming to bear, bringing their networks, bringing their expertise, their funding channels. And I guess a light bulb clicked. Oh, yes, we must use all of these scales of influence, development, and networks in our little place on South Mountain to preserve our quality of life and the health of this place. And so that's why we're named South Mountain Partnership. Anything else that we should add, Julia?
Yeah, one thing that I'll just state is our geographic boundaries of our region. We're a portion of Adams, Cumberland, Franklin, and York County. And we got started with that focus because it surrounds the Michoud State Forest. And that has evolved over time, that we have integrated partners from all four of those counties, and we've grown to include more and more people, and I think to do more communications and outreach and facilitation over time of our partners.
Can you tell us about the State of the Region project?
So this is a long time coming. In 2019, I think our leadership committee finally blessed the concept of State of the Region. And I had brought it to them as a potential way to bring all of our partners together, as we have historic preservation partners, agriculture, natural resource, outdoor rec partners. We had not yet had a way to really bring them all together and let them see themselves in a path forward or a strategic way to work together, moving forward over the next 5 to 10 years. So this project actually, the concept for this project actually comes out of Berks County. Berks Nature has done a return on environment report and a state of Berks County report. And they engage industries like economic development in talking about environmental and public health through those documents. And so we thought we would do the same, but at a regional scale.
So we have all of these diverse partners at the table, and we want to figure out a way to measure our health. So the other really exciting piece of the State of the Region was we had all four counties coming together to work on this project. And our four counties, Adams, Cumberland, Franklin, and York, aren't otherwise collaborating in any other venue. So this was a really beautiful partnership of the counties, as well as all of those regional partners that Katie mentioned. And so we spent a really challenging year trying to understand what about our home we wanted to measure, what was good or bad in a measurement, and then how to communicate that out to the public. So that culminated in a report card, in 3 sets of deliverables: a report card, mapping, and then thirdly, a final report and set of action plan recommendations. So the report card, in an effort not to give anybody flashbacks to little blue books and high school report cards, gives thumbs up, thumbs to the side, and thumbs down. And those measurements are indicating the health of our region and what we can do and where we see an ability for progress. And so that report card and the data behind it was kind of the basis of understanding where we are. And then through our consultant, our counties, and the general public, we moved into what can we do about this? We took a huge set of recommendations, over 65, and distilled those into 5 action projects that we can take on as a partnership. And to be clear, as a partnership does not mean just Katie and I. We work with incredible people in our leadership committee and our entire committee structure that will be moving these recommendations forward. We are truly a network. Very little happens by ourselves. Everything comes through a collaborative effort.
What are some of the biggest environmental or conservation challenges currently facing the South Mountain region?
Yeah, so the State of the Region report actually documents that for us in terms of how we view this region as the organization that we are that cares about this broad selection of resource types. And so our regional challenges that we focus on are sustainable development, meaning the conversion of land from its natural or open space state to one that is maybe impermeable or built upon or otherwise converted in a way that might damage habitat, let's say, or water quality. The second challenge is water quality and quantity, managing that stormwater. Loss of farmland, well, really just loss. We're losing a lot. And so we kind of lump the loss of farmland, habitat, historic and cultural places, open space, and forests, woods, all together. Fifth, we have public health as a regional challenge. We have certain populations in this region that lack access to outdoor recreation and open space resources, either by car or by foot, sometimes both. And that's an issue for such a place like this that is so beautiful and has so many outdoor recreation resources that more people aren't connected to them for their very own mental and physical well-being. And lastly, recreation challenge. This sort of fits in a variety of places, but the recreation challenge is, connecting all of those recreation assets and perhaps also building upon them so that we have a more robust outdoor recreation infrastructure, both for our own people, for transportation and health, but also for possibly one day an economic development strategy.
In April, there were 2 wildfires occurring at the same time in Michoud State Forest. How did those fires impact the area? And then are there any lessons you learned from the incident?
Oh my, so many lessons.
The state of the region could have perhaps predicted some of these things. We know that our weather is changing, and we know that we're having weather and patterns that are impacting our region differently. And we also know that our state forests have a great deal of existing standing deadwood, in addition to these dry conditions, make for a scary recipe for wildfires. So I think what we're hoping to take away from these wildfires is how we can communicate more about those conditions and what every citizen can do and what we can do as a greater partnership to support our forests and to make sure that our community can get through other emergency events like this in the future. But to speak specifically about these fires, it was a real challenge, and I think I want to pause and acknowledge the hard work that our state forest team, our state parks teams, and our county emergency response team, and then a multitude of emergency responders, both from our local community and outside of our community, even into Maryland, responded to this fire and did an incredible job keeping this from being an impact to human health, property, or lives. So we're just truly grateful that that we're able to get through this safely together. And the South Mountain Partnership wants to support the forest going forward. So we are working with some of the stakeholders in the forest region to begin to build out some communications messages around the fire that we can share with our community, because we saw people really wanting information. This was a communication need. We had a Facebook post and an email that went out to our group that I think on Facebook had 45,000 views the weekend of the fire for people to understand what to do. Everyone wanted to help. We had a huge outpouring of support to local responders, folks donating supplies. And now we know that those local responders also really need financial support to move forward. They need volunteers and they need our community support going forward. So we really learned a lot about how strong our community is, and we're committed to working with our partners to be ready to communicate and respond in the future.
Yeah. And I'll just follow up by saying that, fire in the forest sounds scary, and it should be when it's unchecked and uncontained, yes, but it's actually a very healthy part of a forest management plan and a forest ecosystem. And so, spring is always our wildfire season. It's always the highest wildfire threat in Pennsylvania, especially in this part of Pennsylvania. And like Julia said, it is a recipe for a potential disaster, but there are some good benefits that will result from portions of this wildfire. It's my understanding that broad areas of pitch pine and other types of plant species that need burning to regenerate and create healthy ecosystems were actually burned. And so we might see the forest rebound in a more healthy way, although it was very scary for all of us. So that's a good benefit. We'll learn more about what a prescribed burn can do for areas like that in the future. And then we've also obviously learned what communications tools were deployed and where the gaps were. And so like Julia said, we're going to bring some partners together and address some maybe gaps in education and outreach. And we won't be the only ones doing this, of course, but things as simple as thinking about it as a network of a community. We know that, for instance, DCNR was briefing, DCNR was holding press releases, I believe 3 times a day, but local news was not covering that. And so that information was not able to get literally out of the forest. And so, like I look at that as something that maybe South Mountain Partnership could help to underpin in the future, making sure that news outlets understand how critical that information is to the local community. And if they're not able to close that gap, we might be able to fashion a local solution for that using all of our partners.
Well, with that being said, how does the partnership work with state parks, forests, or private landowners to protect natural resources?
Well, this is really interesting because we are a DCNR designated landscape. Department of Conservation and Natural Resources has designated us as a conservation landscape. We actually have the honor of being assigned an internal DCNR lead. And for that, for us, that is Tyler Sumner out of the Bureau of Forestry. And he's awesome at connecting us with our local parks and the forest. He helps to facilitate at least quarterly team meetings where we all get together, usually just in a random pavilion, and we go round robin about, what's working, what are our challenges, what could we maybe work on together, what can South Mountain Partnership solve? We're fixing the world's problems really together. But, we're trying to get a pulse on what they need and how we can help to influence solutions for them or on their behalf or throw our support behind them in some way. So that's probably the most strategic way that we're involved. But we also have their friends groups serving on they've served on some of our project teams, maybe one of our committees, they're attending our meetings, and we really work to get information to them and to also present information from them to our broader audience.
We've also funded some research on the forest. I'll talk a little bit later, hopefully, about our research grants, but we've funded some specific projects to support the forest. Like we are currently helping support a Southern Michaud Trail study that the Shippensburg University Center for Land Use and Sustainability is undertaking. So this is an effort similar to what happened in Mountain Creek, if you're familiar with that area, to both inventory trails, understand the best place for trails, and create a designated system of trails that are named and published and signed in a way that allow folks to arrive at their destination at the forest, know where they're going to go, have a good experience, be able to make it back to the parking lot easily with clear directions. And so we're really proud to support the forest and state parks in that way as well.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, we've been able through that project to really look at this issue of sustainability through the eyes of the district forest. When they're thinking about sustainability, they're often balancing outdoor rec use with their budget, their capacity, their manpower, and how many hours are in a day. So just to be part of those discussions about, well, how many miles of road can they be expected to maintain every year with washouts increasing and having to pay for, just replacing gravel that they know is going to wash away again, like the efficiencies and helping to bring resources to bear to help tease out those solutions. That's been like one of the most fulfilling things of this job, I think, because we learn so much from them, and then we can bring what we know and what we have access to into their court if it works for them.
Can you share a success story from a project the partnership has supported? Anything in particular that really stands out to you?
Yeah, I want to bring light to our grant program. This is one of our hallmark activities that I'm just so proud of. In addition to having so many ideas about what would make our region healthy and successful, we're also willing to support our partners in those actions financially. And I'm really proud of that. So we have 3 different grant programs. We offer our flagship program, which is our mini grants. We also offer research grants to students doing local research on local land that benefits local land managers, which is a real trifecta of amazingness. And then thirdly, we just 2 years ago have launched a privately funded through donations grant program called our Flex Grant Program. That's a small amount of money. It's been $600, now up to $2,000 to directly support a grassroots project or an emergent need or a community that needs support quickly and also flexibly. That grant does not require match, and it's really easy and accessible to apply for and receive. So I would like to tell you about a couple of those specific projects. So in terms of our mini grant program, we are able to support each of our natural, cultural, and recreational resources. But even better, we support projects that reach a nexus of those 4 resources. So not just one, but many. An example of that I'll share that I was actually just participated in a stakeholder engagement session for last night is the historic Heishman Mill in Newville, Pennsylvania. This mill sits at the Coneduganit Creek. It has a fish bypass that allows the transverse of fish safely through a dam area. It is on the site of a historic mill that is a beautiful historic access. And they have just added recreational resources through investment from DCNR that allow a canoe portage to take out and put in around the dam, as well as handicap accessible access to the site. So that project happened from DCNR last year, and we're stepping in this year to support their planning of bringing the community into that site, interpreting the history, and sharing that out with the community. What can this building be, and how can it impact the community? So that project hits all 4 of those resources without even having to try, really, because it supports our agricultural resources, recreation, cultural, historic site, and we've got this beautiful stream that is the setting for all of it to happen. So that's an example of a successful mini grant project. And then I'll quickly also share a Flex Grant story, and then I'll pass it back over to Katie. Our Flex Grants this past year in Cumberland County supported a community event to allow residents to understand how we could have community-supported investment in outdoor recreation and natural resource protection. So in Cumberland County, we have an incredible farmland preservation program and a natural and open space program, but they need more funding. And so this workshop began to look at successful models, for example, with our neighbors in York County and beyond, of how locals can fund these kinds of initiatives in their community in a way that does not put any undue burden on any one individual, but can have incredible impact in the region. So this small Flex Grant paid to have the event space rented and food for participants. So it's a very straightforward grant, but think about the impact of beginning that ball rolling for the community.
Yeah, and I think a lot of our grants have historically been used to get the ball rolling. In addition to prioritizing applications that are Nexus projects, we want innovation. Because we've already always been an innovative region. People might kind of look sideways at us for saying that, but we've always innovated across agriculture, outdoor recreation, conservation. It's in our blood, and innovation looks like convening partners, having a historic preservation partner in your outdoor recreation project, going across lines. And another project I wanted to highlight, we've already talked about it, but the State of the Region project, I cannot underscore how important this has been for South Mountain Partnership, because it really demonstrates a turning point and an evolution for our network of folks. We've been around formally since 2006, and it took us until 2019 to really settle on and build inter-county investment in one common project that was broad enough amongst all of our partners. And that's not to say that our region was slow on the uptake. No, not at all. Like Julia said, we practice a very specific type of conservation called landscape conservation. Not only is that practicing at a larger geographic scale, it's also centering process on people and moving at the speed of trust. And so that makes for really long timelines, but ultimate sustainability because there's cultural buy-in. And so that State of the Region project really is our turning point to becoming a more strategic, regionally focused, and project-oriented now projects that came out of the State of the Region project for the first time.
And now, let's hear from our sponsors. The Keystone Trails Association presents the 2025 Keystone Hiking and Outdoor Weekend, October 17th to the 19th in the Pennsylvania Wilds. The weekend includes group hikes, river tours, bike rides, forest bathing, and more. KTA welcomes visitors to discover Clarion County and the PA Wilds. To learn more, visit kta-hike.org. Are you looking for your next adventure? Unlock some of the best landscapes in Pennsylvania with incredibly detailed, highly curated, waterproof trail maps from the folks at Purple Lizard. They create extraordinary maps of Pennsylvania state forests for people who love to explore the outdoors. Find them at your local outfitters, bike shops, and bookstores, or visit purplelizard.com, where your next adventure begins. Refresh your love of Pennsylvania state parks and forests with the Pennsylvania Parks and Forests Foundation. Stay in the know by finding events on Meetup or their website, signing up for their weekly e-newsletter, following them on social media, joining a local friends group, or accessing resources online at paparksandforests.org. Together, we can help conserve Pennsylvania's natural resources, support education, and remove barriers to an inclusive outdoor experience for everyone. Looking for a way to add some local Pennsylvania flair to your space? Check out Sister Sunflowers. They create unique stickers inspired by small local spaces that make your community shine. From quirky caves to hidden local gems, their stickers bring your favorite places to life. Perfect for your laptop, water bottle, or anywhere that needs a little hometown love. For both locals and visitors, there's stickers, magnets, prints, and more celebrating Pennsylvania's most iconic parks and forests. And for more avid explorers, there's even a hand-drawn poster to keep track of the Pennsylvania state parks and forests that you've been to. Use the code HELLBENDER15 at checkout to get 15% off your first order. Support local, inspire adventure, and decorate with meaning. Only at Sister Sunflowers. Shop now and celebrate the places that make your town special. All right, back to the show. What role do volunteers play in supporting the partnership's work?
This is hands down my favorite part of our work. We get to have meaningful and deep relationships with our partners through our committee structure. So our programming is managed entirely through this committee structure. We have 4 and sometimes more committees. We have a leadership committee. I'll let Katie maybe talk a little bit about how they help craft our strategic direction. But we also have a program committee that puts on our events and manages our grant programs. And then we have a communications committee that helps shape our core messages, how we talk to the public, and the themes that we try to bring forth in our communications. We also have a fundraising action team that helps support our small fundraising initiatives that are very modest, like funding our Flex Grant program. And then finally, we have a research grant committee made up of local land managers and educational partners that help select research grants, review research grants, and help us advertise the program. And these individuals are beyond incredible, Christian. They are the best people who bring so much kindness, ingenuity, and partnership to all levels of our work that really make it meaningful. And oftentimes when we have events, we get complimented on our vibes. And we're very proud of our vibes, and our vibes are due to these amazing people that come out and spend their time and volunteer to help create this sense of partnership.
Yeah. And what I like to say is that another advantage of this committee structure being used to inform what we do and how we do it is, I can't go as far to say that it's fail safe, but it's really good for everyone. Because not only is it, warm fuzzies and feel goods, but it's them bringing their expertise to the table. And so there's no way that Julia and I, or a group of 5 leadership committee members, could access or embody all of those types of expertise and knowledge bases. So we just get a little bit of everything, and it all jives, and we've been able to cultivate a culture that is respectful, but if it's not jiving and making sense, we probably are not going to do it. We're not going to force things.
Yeah, a term we like to use is following the energy, and the committee members really help us identify energy and move towards it.
Well, I'll tell you, as somebody who is now serving on 4 boards and committees, vibes are very important. So I'm glad that you guys are steeped in vibes.
The other secret ingredient to vibes, Christian, is local, delicious food.
Yeah,
we do take
I like that. Yeah, that sounds good.
Very seriously.
Yeah.
Super serious in South Central PA.
Can you tell us about any community events, educational programs, or public outreach efforts that your partnership is known for?
Yeah, I would say that our regional meetings are a hallmark staple event of South Mountain Partnership. They've been growing since I came on board about 10 years ago. And they're a place where anyone is welcome, inside the region or outside the region. If you want to come in, that's fine. But it's a place for people to connect with like-minded individuals who care about this place and care about its future, and the generations that are yet to come and are going to be handed this landscape and are going to have to manage it and put it to use for themselves. So I'd say that our regional meetings are key. So one of them is just a celebration. That's called Power of the Partnership Celebration. That's every fall during harvest, taking advantage of all that local delicious food. And we're awarding grants. We're awarding the Spirit of South Mountain. And we're highlighting just some really kind of high level ingenuity, innovation, or success from the county that is hosting us that year. And then our spring meeting has morphed into an outdoorsy, i.e. outside under a pavilion, no matter the weather. We had over 80 registrants and we crammed them all in. And that meeting is casual but informative. Again, we're bringing the host county into the mix. We've got, commissioners speaking, county planners giving an update about the state of things, and then highlighting other interesting initiatives. Like in Adams County, they're undergoing an update of the economic impact study of the Adams County Fruit Belt, for instance. So we get updates on important things, as well as Michaud State Forest was giving us an update about several of their initiatives, challenges, needs, successes. And then our winter meeting has turned into an obviously indoors event that is becoming more and more focused on funding, resources, municipal and county outreach. So like, this is where the energy happens. This is where people network, collaboration starts. And you just also have a really wonderful time. We held the winter meeting in the Keystone Kids Factory in New York City. And on their second floor, and there were all of these like crazy chairs that you could spin around on. So, we're not trying to be stuffy either. We're trying to be fun and make sure people are getting out and about throughout the region to get to know it.
The region is rich in history. How does the partnership help preserve and promote the cultural heritage of South Mountain?
I think this probably mostly comes out through our grant program, supporting programs like that. And both Julia and I have backgrounds in cultural and historic resources. I worked for the State Historic Preservation Office, and Julia worked for Preservation Pennsylvania. That's right. And so we're able to have a unique kind of perspective when these applications come in. But also in State of the Region, there is at least one action project that is heavily centered on historic preservation, in that it calls for a baseline inventory, like field inventory of historic resources and historic places regionally. So that's going to be a very big undertaking that we will eventually get to once we get through a couple of other projects.
But there is an exciting group in Cumberland County beginning to take on this idea of a survey. We also supported a mini grant to Shippensburg University for a guide empowering citizens to protect historic resources that they care about. So they just published this past year. It's available on our website, and it's a living document that has actionable steps to research historic places, to figure out what places you care about and what you can do to protect them long term.
That's really exciting. That's really fun to hear about.
Yeah. Another example similar to that is there's a historic Gettysburg Adams County organization, very generic name, but they're actually a barn preservation group headquartered in Gettysburg, and they work throughout Adams County, helping residents to preserve barns. And this is really important because our region has some of the last Pennsylvania bank barns that are not found in other parts of even Pennsylvania, more or less the East Coast. So we've got this very unique architectural style of barn, and we see them, disappearing constantly. And this group is working to survey them so that we have, information about them, obviously, but also they work on a barn preservation sort of list or prescription with the farmer or the barn owner. And this has been so effective that the State Historic Preservation Office has worked with them to be able to modify their methodology and take it to other parts of the state so that other counties and places can implement this methodology. And these groups like this are so important because it allows us to push resources their way as well, or counties or municipalities to push resources their way for them to implement and really optimize what they've already created. And an example of this is like a few years ago, a cell phone tower went up in Adams County, and much of Adams County is covered by a historic district because of the historic fruit belt region. And we were contacted as part of the review, the environmental review process, and it was determined that that cell phone tower was going to have an adverse effect on the region. So there was funding available, mitigation funding. And because this barn preservation group exists, we're able to push that mitigation funding to them to serve local people and inject that money back into really local resources. And I love doing stuff like that.
That's really interesting. That's fun. The fact that you're able to kind of like take a negative and still make a positive out of it.
Yeah, you have to.
Are there any particularly interesting or lesser known sites in the region you think more people should visit?
So I'll start with a pitch, which is game lands, more than hunting. We have some incredible game lands and incredible professionals working on those game lands to manage different populations, to create native plant habitats and habitats for animals. And I think you have to be aware of hunting seasons and to recreate safely in Game Commission land. But there are so many amazing spots. Two I'll just highlight that are favorites of mine are the Newburgh game lands outside of Shippensburg, and then also the game lands in Dillsburg and Franklintown are a favorite walking place for me. So it's just a fun place that you may not always think to explore, but the game lands do offer a source of recreation, but it's important to check what hunting season you're in, be visible, be seen in orange, all that good safety stuff while you're exploring.
And I'll put in a pitch for recreating at historic sites. This is already well documented. A lot of people already do this, but we just don't know that we're doing it. For instance, in the DCNR State Conservation and Outdoor Recreation Plan, also known as SCORP, it's documented that people will visit historic places to recreate, to be outside and walk and hike. And likewise, they will go to outdoor recreation places to see historic resources. And so to me, it's sort of all the same. But I really enjoy when there is also a like intellectual history component to my outdoor recreation. And so one example of that was Camp Michaud and the barn and that site. Well, I say was, it still is, but the barn wall unfortunately fell down circa 2016. It hadn't been able to be reinforced yet.
But you can still walk there and see incredible remnants of the CCC camps and all kinds of cool artifacts while you're walking.
Yeah, there's a self-guided tour. There's like a little box and you can pick out a self-guided tour and walk around and learn more about the history.
How does the partnership balance growth and development with conservation and preservation in the region?
It's a tough sell, to be honest with you. The way we look at it is that it's all about balance. We've already said the word. No one's asking for a halt on development, but what I think we are after is a deep thoughtfulness about where we're developing and ensuring that we are developing in places that do not contain sensitive habitat, do not contain sensitive water infiltration locations. And if we are, we need to be paying special attention to, building and water management methods. I think, sometimes we get into a mindset that there's limited land and that it has to be either or. Either we have to conserve it all or we have to develop it all. And we forget about the gradient of choices that we have. And our municipalities have so many choices about how they approach land development, where they allow it, and how they plug into their county comprehensive plans to do it in the right way.
And we know we're at a really key moment for this because out of the entire state of Pennsylvania, our 4 counties represent 4 of the top 6 fastest growing counties. So we know that people really love it here. And we know that that gives our municipalities, our local leaders, our partnership an important mission to work on this now and not push it off to the future.
Yeah. And I would say that one of our core reasons for existing is simply to engage people in the conversation about what do you value about this place? What do you want it to be like in 20, 30, 50 years? What do you want to leave to your children? And then how are we going to get there? Are we on the right path? Or do we need some course corrections to make sure that we're going to get there? And then just simply working toward those things that need to be optimized or corrected and holding on to all the successes that we already have under our belt, like the farmland preservation programs. We're doing some things great, but we can do some things even better. And that's all laid out in the report card and the State of the Region report.
Are there any current or upcoming projects or initiatives that you're excited about?
Yes, absolutely. The state of the region charts a course for us. So we know where we're headed as a partnership, and those implementation projects are already underway. The first is our natural heritage inventory, which is a state inventory program of sensitive birds, animals, habitats of all species that create the back end of permitting for things like DEP and other regulatory agencies to make sure that our development is not on sensitive areas, as Katie said. And our natural heritage inventory data, we found out through State of the Region, was more than 20 years old. So
Oh, wow.
we are in the process of updating that in all 4 counties in the entirety of the counties. And we're looking forward for that work to be finishing up and those new data points to be informing future planning decisions. So that's really exciting. I'll let Katie talk a little bit about our Trail Coalition work that's just starting. But I just wanted to again highlight the inventory of historic places as one of our implementation projects. We also plan to just internally begin to track land conversion to again better understand change over time. And Katie can talk about our Trail Coalition and wildlife corridors.
Yeah, thanks. So as Julia stated earlier, South Mountain Show State Forest, that is the northern end of the Blue Ridge Mountains and the only place in Pennsylvania where the Blue Ridge Mountains exist. And we know, at the end of that, it falls down, it falls. We know that at the end of that, it transitions into the Susquehanna Valley on the east and the Cumberland Valley to the west and the Susquehanna River, sort of to the north. And we need wildlife connection so that we don't get population sinks, inbreeding, extinctions happening on our landscape. So we need to ensure that species can still connect from South Mountain to the Kittatinny Ridge to the west, across the Cumberland Valley, or into the Pennsylvania Highlands, the Pennsylvania Highlands to the east, which actually runs through New Jersey, New York, and into Connecticut as well. So we're connecting 3 really unique landscapes here. And hence the need for wildlife corridors. By setting our sights on connecting these large landscapes will serve our local habitat and species as well. So that is just a huge undertaking. We don't necessarily have much expertise in that particular skill set yet. So we're sort of getting our bearings, and also we're waiting on the state of Pennsylvania to move through a couple of core strategic underpinnings that would be needed to work among state agencies on wildlife corridor connectivity. So there was a recent legislative report, I think it was released in 2024, that laid out next steps that need to be taken by the Commonwealth to pull together an interagency committee or work group on furthering our knowledge and our plan for wildlife connectivity in the state. So we'll continue to follow that, and when that energy peaks, hopefully we'll be ready to step into implementation for that. But right now, we are focusing on a regional trail coalition. We're exploring if the South Mountain region could benefit from a regional trail coalition, because we don't have a lot of capacity currently at the county or municipal levels to assist in trail planning or trail implementation. I've personally been part of conceptualizing and planning a local trail that, if it were built, would connect Dillsburg and Mechanicsburg. And so I have firsthand knowledge about how agonizing this process is. It is the worst roller coaster ride that I have ever been on. And I think that speaks to the devotion of people who are part of trail development and how stubborn and devoted they are at the same time to this. What we're talking about is looking at the needs of everyone who has a stake in trails in this region and figuring out how we as a regional network of folks with also access to state and possibly federal partners could assist. Maybe it looks like helping to prioritize projects that get put forth for funding applications. Maybe it's simply advocacy. Maybe it's helping to identify training needs across the region, attract more volunteers to build up the capacity of trail groups. We just hosted our kickoff meeting at the spring meeting on Friday. And so we collected a lot of good feedback from about 45 folks who registered for that event and helped us by filling out questionnaires and then kind of breaking into feedback groups to help put forth recommendations for our first steps. But ultimately, our vision, should we determine that a regional trail coalition is valuable, our vision is to help create a region with a robust multi-use trail infrastructure that connects communities to one another and to outdoor recreation locations that they don't already have connections to. And so this gets back to the recreation challenge of state of the region. Not only would this make our region more healthy, for individuals, like there would be more mental and physical health for residents. There would be potential environmental benefits as well. A lot of times when you develop trails, you can incorporate best practices and other environmental projects along the way in that corridor. Sometimes they can even serve as a greenway of sorts for wildlife and habitat. And then I also think of it as a potential economic development strategy. Once we have a certain core infrastructure of outdoor recreation resources and trail connections, we can start marketing that. We're already a destination for people. We already know with a lot of cell phone technology and data that we're attracting people from pretty far away for weekends and longer visits. And so we could really lean into that if we wanted, and if everyone's comfortable with it, and have an even more diverse economic development strategy across the entire region that's more sustainable at times than what we have now.
What do you envision for the future of the South Mountain region, and how can people help support that vision?
We want to vision that with everyone. So we want your ideas for what a vision looks like. But our current partnership, I think, really cares about having a high quality of life for residents, a healthy environment, and all people being able to enjoy both of those things. And so in order to get there, I think our state of the region charts a course to help course correct, as Katie said, some of these metrics we learned about in the report card. We have these exciting projects that we know can take us to a place where we are healthier, where we are more balanced, and where we do have a future that we're really looking forward to.
In addition to what Julia said, sustainable economic development is imperative. You know, achieving that balance is super tricky, but I feel like we can become that sophisticated here and more discerning with how we strategize for job creation and economic development. We have all of the choices. We hold all of the cards because we have such a high quality of life. We have the ability to be discerning. And I have a little one. She's 2.5 years old. And my family has been here for hundreds of years. I want what they had. I want her to have what I had. I want her to have access to all of these places. I want her to have clean water. I want her to fish and play in a creek and not have to worry about bacteria, E. coli, fecal coliform, algal blooms. And people can volunteer with us by getting online on our website and accessing our volunteer tab, there's a very, very quick and easy survey that you can fill out that just collects some really basic information about you, what you're interested in, what brought you to South Mountain Partnership, and any particular skills that you might have to come to bear. We do usually recruit folks to serve on our committee structure, but I think we're also constantly interested in figuring out other ways to allow people to volunteer and engage with us. But certainly it's not all about us as well. Like, you can help us by helping our partners. So we also have a partner tab on our website, and that lists the contact information for all of our partners. And probably all of them could use an additional volunteer or 5 or more. And the possibilities are just endless. And so if someone is interested in helping us push these priorities forward, you can engage directly with us, look at the recommendations and the report card on our website. We've made it really easy for you to read how you can do things at your home or in your community. But you can just support your community, support the partners, and help them, and you'll be helping everyone.
Where should people go to learn more about South Mountain Partnership, your website, and your social media handles?
Join us by going to our website, southmountainpartnership.org. And on the website, you can sign up for our newsletter. That's the best way to stay up to date on news, what our partners are up to, invitations to events, and alerts about grants and jobs. We also have a pretty cool job board on our website that you might want to check out. Once you signed up for our newsletter, you will be brought into the sphere of South Mountain Partnership, but you can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and LinkedIn.
Thanks so much for talking to us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you for highlighting all of the awesome stuff happening in Pennsylvania. We are so proud of Pennsylvania, and certainly our little corner as well.
I really appreciate the time you put into thinking through what we do through these questions, and the work that you're doing to bring creators to our industry, to bring attention to the field in general that I just don't think we had before you stepped onto the field. So we really appreciate it.
I want to thank my guests Katie Hess and Julia Chain for joining the podcast. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and Meta for more information about upcoming episodes. You can support the podcast by buying merch at hemlockstohellbenders.com, or you can click support the show in the podcast description to provide a monthly donation. This has been Hemlocks to Hellbenders. I'll see you out there. Hosting, production, and editing by Christian Alexanderson. Music by John Sauer. Graphics by Matt Davis.